Hello, gang. Let's see. We've had issues the last couple of runs with my mic not being loud enough, so I turned it up an extra 20% already. Hopefully this sounds okay. Let me know if there's issues. We're gonna just do some painting today. No special thing going on. How's your weekends going? I can talk. I didn't just wake up, I swear. As always, lean in with questions if you have any. Questions, comments, welcome. Doing some bold colors today, I reckon. Sonabil, long time. Indeed. How you doing? I just started again. This is only like the third session of the latest season, if you will. Hey, no complaints on my end. I'd been real busy, that's why I was away from Twitch. But things have eased up, definitely, since. Gray voice. Thanks. I'm sounding very awake and making total cogent sense. It's what I do. And again, like earlier this week, we went through and did a big brush culling, and it was all about trying to find more painterly looking brushes and pulling away from the concept art brushes. I still have them. They're just not currently in my kit, and so I want to stick with that theme and try and do something more painterly, if possible. Simultaneous contrast. I only need to go desaturated in gray and it'll feel more green by virtue of how bright these reds are. Did I continue doing magic work when I was working as an AD? I did, but way less, and I'm starting to ramp that back up again, trying to get back into the routine. I think I did maybe 4 cards in the entire year and a half. Maybe a couple more. I can't remember. More yellow in there. Hopefully this is causing your eyes to bleed just a touch too. follow the rules I set for myself. Big brush, biggest brushes I can to start. Cool, soft touch. What you working on, Sonaville? You have to make an illustration look animatable. That sounds like an interesting challenge. Showing our color wheel. Or just get it too small. Ah, there we go. That explains it. An illustration that looks semi-realistic but is moving. Are you talking like Alberto Mielgo kind of thing, where it's a stylistic illustration with realistic lighting? He seems to come at it from a shape orientation. If you look at his personal work, and then also, you know, like his involvement with Into the Spider-Verse and the Netflix series, the Love, Death, and Robots. I'm blending just to get some color variation. Since I can't color mix on a palette, or it's not really economical to do so, I mean, technically I could. So did you have a question, Sanabil, or are you still typing it up? Ah, your client wants to look like old classical style painting. It's going to be like a Lord of the Rings final scene scenario when Frodo wakes up and sees his friends. I mean, I'm still not sure what the question is. I don't know of any software that does it, but I'm sure it exists that would make like it. What you would want to do is make an animation, and then the software would make it look like it was a painting. There is one. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's I think it starts with a G. I can't remember. I think it's a painter's name. But yeah, it's some kind of an AI or a filter that will take your painting and kind of give it or take your animation and give it a painterly treatment. Yeah, sorry, I can't get much more help there. Once again, we're trying to do our Sargent style approach and have something that reads in 30 minutes or less. So this is my test for that. If it reads like what I'm intending down here at a squint, not even a squint, just kind of a lower res version of it, then I think we're okay. Especially if it's working without any accent values and lines. Have to go very saturated next to that red because nothing will look the same, but it's a pretty different color than what you see there. See how much more red that is, but it looks the same. That's simultaneous contrast. Sometimes it works against you like that, where you have such an intense color that you're trying to match against that you have to make desaturated color appear very intense. Or sorry, you have to make it literally very intense, and it won't look it. It's very tough. Get a little bit of color variation going on in here. This reminds you of a painting I already did on stream. Yeah, I actually, when I started the red field, it reminded me of it too, but I think this one's going to be pretty different. Yeah, the vampire lady with two mouths. I posted that recently, I think, on YouTube. Yeah. I'm hoping that this will read different. I mean, that one was very kind of graphic designerly, and more, I want to say, pulp horror feeling. I'm hoping to get this one to feel a little bit more fantasy, I think. And of course, I'm specifically challenging myself to try and paint kind of Sargent style, you know, as digital Sargent as I can get. Obviously, I am no Sargent, but I can try, you know. It's the little things. The hard part is, I mean, I'm inventing anatomy and trying to do the color at the same time, so I'm going to end up with lots of mistakes. Like, this neck is janky. And I have to be careful. I'm going to need to knock down this red in this wall of flowers or whatever it's going to be. I'm going to have to knock that down probably in some parts so that I don't create contrasts that I'm not interested in having. So why did I decide on this painterlization of my work? I mean, I've always painted kind of more painterly. I tried really hard in like the last 15 years to push more into kind of the hyperrealism, the concept art thing. And when I look back at a lot of my old paintings, I just had more fun painting stuff like this. It was just kind of rough and more raw. Things that I could finish in a single sitting. So what I'm trying to do is train myself back into it so that I can start approaching my freelance again this way. Like if you look at my very first Magic cards, they're so sloppy, but they're fun. Like, they're not overwrought. That's what I want to get away from, is just the overwrought thing. So just with shapes, I'm trying to get attitude, and this is a challenge. Let me tell you. So I'm trying to do attitude, anatomy, color theory, and graphic design. All in a single go. This is why not everybody could be Sargent, let me tell you. You were thinking the other day, how does one study good shape language? This. You need to be approaching it from a graphic design perspective. Trying to make shapes, trying to do, compositions from the outset. I'm going to crop this differently, I can tell already, because it's just a little too centered. In fact, let's do it right now so you can kind of see that thinking. I just want to offset. The cool thing, so with Photoshop's crop with the grid on, you can see the grid. So we could actually crop this so that we could get her eye right in that third right there. See where it's a crossover? Those points on the center square, the corners of the center square, are your focal point kind of grids for classical painting, image making, photography. You see them on the cameras all the time when you look through your viewfinder. That sort of thinking, will help out with your more designerly stuff. But yeah, the best way to just tackle shapes is to go right into them, and don't fuss with the rendering. Spend a lot of time on that. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just go back to my splatter brush. Call it good. We only have a few hours to play together today. Yeah, if you want to join along, please feel free to do some graphic painting and then post it to our Discord. Love to see what y'all come up with. Here I am just trying to knock down this big, bold red splatter that I just kind of threw in for our composition ideation. I'm trying to get the background up to a level of rendering that I have in the foreground. Not rendered, just kind of traditionally. So if I was covering this, we were talking concept art or a full-blown illustration, I'd be talking about, now that we have kind of a rough idea of what the foreground figure would be like, then we'd go back into the background and really tighten it down, and then move forward. And as we paint each layer, get tighter and tighter with the detail. We're not going to get into that so much because I want the looseness. I really want it to feel juicy as a painting. Naomi! A raid, if you will. Aw. Hey, welcome all. It is a party. Thanks for visiting, Naomi. Were you streaming just now? What were you painting? I am well. I am just doing some Sargent style studies, just painting random stuff and trying to get it to feel Sargent-y. Awesome. Welcome, Wizardess Supper, Mr. Pupper. I like the connotations. The goat indeed. So we're experiencing my struggle real time to try and do anything even legible. Patches from the Souls series. Oh, gotcha. Yes, John Singer Sargent. That is the GOAT. So this is not a painting. This isn't a study of one of his paintings. I'm just kind of doing in the style of, kind of trying to. Is tough. He can probably also sing, or he could have, if he wasn't too busy chiding people for over rendering. My favorite John Singer Sargent story is that he had students. There's one of his students, I can't remember her name, who was an incredible painter herself. She took notes in several of his classes, and you can find those notes online. It's sort of like his lessons direct to you. I don't know. Probably Naomi knows her name, but you can find them online. You get a PDF of the notes, and one of my favorite things is he would bitch at his students that he wanted them to do alla prima painting. So you mix the color and you lay it down, and that's the color. That's what you're after. Don't blend. You can't blend on the canvas. And he would like go off about it all the time, and then he would do it constantly. He would be blending on the canvas. I mean, he's the master. Obviously, he's learned how to do it the hard way, but. Yeah, he would use brushes to kind of like blend between strokes to make softer edges here and there, and of course it works, but he would force the students to not do as he did and instead do as he says. And as teachers, you know how we do. Alright, let's get back to our brushes up here on our figure. We've noodled more on the background. I think it's still okay. I may have already over-rendered it. It's what I do. I set out with a goal and I failed in the first 40 minutes. But we have a painting already. We got something. Need to get these edges sussed out. The last kind of painting that I did with this strong color field, I think Grey Voice mentioned, was a horror type, a pulpy horror painting that you can find on my Instagram, and you'll know it when you see it. Believe me. I want to really avoid that. I want this to be a much kind of softer, sweeter type moment. Sassy still, but not nearly as in your face and emotionally violent. Devin Art, thank you for the follow. Wizardess as well. Dear Mr. Flowers, Kuroved, Overthinker. That's awesome. Thank you so much, gang. Naomi, you're awesome. Wonder, oops. Yeah, John Singer Sargent was really strict. And that's like, I mean, if you look at his paintings and you see the kind of the control in them, you can see why he was strict. Because it translated directly into the work. You wonder how he'd react to a digital program? And he'd probably shit himself. He'd hate it. I guarantee you he'd hate it. So we're sitting here worshiping his ass, and he'd be like, these filthy cucks with their digital machines. product of the time, you know. He would probably be highly disturbed, considering the age, that a brown man was painting in his style. Let's put it that way. Emotionally violent. It's just it's just a horror piece, so it's a little bit more over the top. How about that? I didn't mean to scare you. Sargent was a classic figurative painter when the trend was toward Impressionism already. Yes, that's true. Yeah, Impressionism as it was a direct result of it was a reaction to the camera, because the camera could basically capture everything. Painters were looking at paintings and going like, why do we even exist? We're not here to, you know, make likenesses of anything anymore, because now there's this thing that can just take a picture of something in a second. You know, obviously needs to be developed and all that. We're talking silver type and all that. But yeah, they'd probably react poorly to digital painting as a replacement thing. Step on me, Sargent. Oh, Naomi. Dark. I love it. Sounds stricter than a military sergeant? Yes, definitely. Pun intended. Excellent. Choke me, Daddy Sergeant. Do I feel that AI will have similar impact on the art world like the camera did? Yes. It's already started. And it's unlike the camera, it has a lot of like ethical problems I don't think the camera faced. You know, like using artists' work to train the thought process of the AI, stuff like that. It gets really weird. If you follow Carla Ortiz, she's got a lot of great info on it. She's been doing interviews and stuff like that with this kind of with the artist's perspective that you know, is helping explain our position to people, because this is all such a new stuff. She's kind of taken over as the spokesperson for it, and so I go to the source. She's got it down. Her arguments are very sound. So now what I'm trying to do is introduce the color of the light in the space onto the figure. If you aren't aware of that kind of inclusion, your figure is always going to feel out of space in your paintings. So you want to make sure that you're including, you know, doing color picking from little spots in the environment and kind of just doing touches of color that bring that back. And that is a painting technique to kind of make your painting feel more cohesive and wholesome, holistic. That's probably the word I'm looking for. But what's really happening there is it is a logic of light and color thing that's happening. So no matter what surface is in your background or in your scene, that surface is bouncing off. Light is hitting it, and that color of the light and the surface are bouncing off of that, and then bouncing into all other stuff. And it's the whole ray tracing thing, right? So you have all these rays going all over the place. You're gonna see that color in the environment mathematically. That's just the logic of the light and color. So this little trick is a painter's trick that's been used for ages, where, you know, you introduce these little color spots from around the painting, and it does harmonize and it does unify, but it also harkens back to that logic. So it's very important. Ouch. Sargent would freak out at technology? Yes. Multi-5. Your subjects are always oversaturated. Yeah, I mean, this helps with that. The other thing to remember is that when you're introducing those other colors, they don't need to be equally saturated. You can counter a lot of that. Oversaturation tends to happen when you're not accounting for simultaneous contrast. You'll have something that, you know, is red, and then you want something that looks green next to it, so then you put green on that surface. And then you're like, okay, now I have green and now I have red. I have a nice complementary. But with simultaneous contrast, what that teaches you is that when you have one color sitting right next to another color, they influence each other. So you can't just have red in a vacuum and green in a vacuum. You put red next to any other color, and that red, especially if it's an intense one like we have here, is going to influence the other color. So you don't need a strong green right next to a bright red, or vice versa. What you can do to control the oversaturation in your paintings is tone down the competition instead of trying to make something feel more saturated. If you wanted to make, you know, the cheek feel really red comparatively, don't always think, should I add more red to the cheek? Think, how can I make that color that's there feel more red by altering the colors around it? Hopefully that makes sense. Bad at math? Oh, I'm terrible at math. Don't even get me started. Thugola! How goes, brother? $60 people today. Oh, yes. Naomi raided me with her squad. It was very sweet. I very much appreciate it, because I'm just getting started again. It has been a minute. So see how, all right, I just did this to myself. I just did the very thing you're talking about. Mold to 5. I wanted to make something more pinky, and so I added a bunch of pink, and then by virtue of doing that, I deadened the rest of the skin. So I need to reconsider where I'm going with that. Undoing those reds. I did exactly that. This happens all the time, you know. You have to. These are mistakes that we all make, and that's how we're able to kind of talk about them and teach on them. But it's something that we're constantly dealing with anyway. You know, I get my hands wrong all the time. It's just what it is. Wizardess, I'm gonna need more. If you're looking for a definition of something, I'm gonna need a little bit more context to what you're looking to get a definition for. Just because I'm talking endlessly, so I'll have lost a subject. Is that Frodo? Naomi, I can't even tell. Y'all have just the best icons. Emojis. Making some coffee and you're gonna do a Call of Duty grind. All right, enjoy. Let me know how it goes. I'm jealous. It's always a push and pull, Devon Art. Yes, exactly. How to acquire Izzy's color theory? Easy. I have all of my videos up on Gumroad. You can find the link in the About section and basically take my entire Logic of Light color course. You love the colors. Thanks, Devon Art. I really appreciate it. At Wavamare, you reopened for yourself the magic of grays. Ah, yes. That's exactly it. Color temperature and color temperature relationship is just another version of simultaneous contrast, where you're putting two colors next to each other and how those different colors affect what each looks like. It's a delightful, complicated thing. Blue things. We're calling the background blue things. Thank you for the name a layer, Ham. Done. Saved. Frodo when he says keep your secrets. We just watched that over here. We are rewatching, or I'm rewatching, but Jasmine's watching for the first time the Lord of the Rings series. We're having to do it in installments because it is quite long. But we just finished the Fellowship, so I get to see that. It's probably been a while since you've seen them. It's worth going back. Oops. The extended versions? No. I thought they were the extended versions. I watched them on Prime, and it said they were the extended versions, but they're definitely not. The extended versions got me through college, man. Me and Pete Hahn, we would watch those back to back. So 12-hour sessions of the extended versions, and then the 12 hours of behind-the-scenes footage, straight doing homework. Those were the days. Okay, I suppose now, since we're getting into that, I need to figure out this outfit. So we have almost 25% dark there. Let's go just a touch darker and start carving out some shapes just so that we can get this figure figured out. I'm sorry. Should be shot for that one. I'm a bad person. I know it. You know it. Let's go just a touch darker. There we go. Okay, so I wanted a little bit of hip action. The question is which way. We're going to go this way. Yes. Yeah, we're doing that. This is very Sargent-y to do this little sweepy hip with the kick up. In fact, because it's separate, I want to see a little bit of hip. Take that, Sargent. How you like me now? You Neo-Luddite? Well, I guess not Neo, but still. Came for the art, leave because of the humor. Sir, I am offended. But I understand. I totally get it. Alright, in here, I'm going to give myself... Because I don't know if we'll actually finish this painting today. We might carry it over till at some point mid next week. Let's give myself a little bit of a note. So speaking of simultaneous contrast, I want to add some light to this dress or jacket or whatever the hell is going on here. Maybe it's like a weird fucked up cat suit. But I want to get in some kind of cool. And so this is a perfect example of simultaneous contrast, right? So this feels like a cool gray compared to the really intense reds over there. But when I have something that is more desaturated, this feels almost pink, right? Same damn color. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? That's simultaneous contrast. So I want to cool that down. Now, this is to tie back, I think it's Multi5 was talking about the oversaturated parts. The instinct would be, if I want this to be cool, I would add a cool color to it. And in so doing, I would end up with something that's way oversaturated. The opposite will do the effect. So right now, I have this, it looks cool here against these pinks, but this less saturated violet, I need to just desaturate. And just desaturating will make it look blue in comparison. See? That cools it off. This is that temperature thing. Isn't that crazy? I love it. I love painting. All right, these are just notes for myself. It's sloppy. Don't judge. I do need to figure out what I'm going to do with these hands. Because now I have hands in it and I have to paint hands in front of people. It'll be alright. We'll be okay. You play a game with a production designer friend where you get him to name the base color of the gray. Blue gray, red gray, yellow gray. That's just mean. Nobody's gonna have your color knowledge, Ham. That's just, you got a cruel streak in you, I gotta tell you. I mean, it could be, I remember, I heard about the art director at High Moon. It was Farzad, right? He's colorblind. So he would have to do his paintings as a concept artist for their designs and like ask somebody else to help out with the color. So you never know, man. He could just be colorblind. That's rude. Don't be rude. I guess this is getting a little bit vampy like my other painting. I need to take it back. What can we do to take it back to make it less? I mean, I want the outfit to be vampy, but not the character or the attitude. He's not colorblind? Alright. Fair enough. You think you're allowed to be rude to colorblind people? No. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. Kilrathi, welcome. Okay, it looks like I'm gonna have to step out of my Sargent pants for a minute here. And I need to figure some stuff out. This happens, don't worry about it. Just, I'm trying to solve a lot in a single shot, and so I need to just get my anatomy sussed. Gonna have to tilt that forward more. I really like the shoulders as they are, but that means this happens. This happens to me every time. I swear. I try and just do something out of my head, and then I have to actually solve for something. I can't. I'll always run into a point. It will happen invariably, and it's always around this time in a painting where the lighting and the color are working great for me, but the shapes are not right, and they're just not going to work for me. So we have hit that point. It is now time to get that fixed. Don't want to go too far there. Something is off with the waist, yeah. Something's off with the arms. That's the big issue for me. The waist, I'm not as fussed about because I'm intending this dress to be kind of a weird, constructivist frilly thing, which is a fun dichotomy there. But that's the goal. So I'm not as worried about that, but I do need the elbows basically to stop at the right spot. I do need the arms to turn in the right way. Taking off to forage for food. Thank you so much, Naomi. I really appreciate you stopping in and doing that big old raid. That was really great. Have a good one. I hope you find something scrumptious. Also, I didn't get a notification about yours, so I need to check if I'm properly following you. Sussed. Alright. And for the few of you that were with me before, please follow Naomi. She is great. Incredible painter. Definitely one of my favorites. Okay. Shoulder shape I'm gonna keep, but I like this new graphic kind of triangle I've figured out. So we're gonna swap that. This is that shape language thing coming back, so I'm using the line now to kind of cheat a little bit. It's all right. No one will know. I want to get real crazy. Yes, yes, yes. There we go. All right. So the cool thing is this is all a separate layer. I can just kind of erase back these shapes so that they work. Easy peasy. Oops. Just be bold. Make those hard decisions. Scratch it out. It'll all work out in the end. We're not fussed. It will, since I do have the rendering already kind of done, it will just kind of transform the face into that position. There's no need to paint it all over again, right? Again, no one's gonna know. Now we turn this off, and boom! It's a little bit more sussed. Great. I do need to know what my overlap was with this. My Lich drawing is so cool. Are you talking about the magic card? I did a couple, I think. Not Lich magic cards, but a couple of different paintings of Liches. So, yeah, awesome. Thanks. Oh my goodness, more follows. Gato Loco. Ben Tuestu, Polka Suvadka. Nice. Lokanato, Arisato Minato, and Yoit Webb. Awesome. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate the follows. Thanks, gang. Yeah, come on back. Oh, I forgot my my interior triangle. So important. Yeah. Wow. There we go. Yeah. And let's grab this. No, let's do. There we go. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. do something else with this hair because it is not hitting. It is not bringing me joy. Kind of a Bayonetta thing going on here. All right. Too strong for that pit. The pit right there. Okay, new layer. Let's do some line work, but we're going to do it all crunchy. So my rules with this part is to be, it'll be pure, fast, loose, long lines. We are not, we're trying to avoid rendering. The whole goal here is to keep the kind of the emotive aspect, the motion to the sketch. Again, my whole purpose in this is that I've gotten so stiff with my paintings. I want to bring back that just raw energy. It's amazing when you go and look at one of these kind of rougher paintings, you know, even the Sargent sketches. If you go and look at it, the strokes that stick out to you, the ones that just kind of they tickle your brain, and it's really hard to put to words like why. But the way I view it is, what you're seeing is, or what is happening is, your brain is reacting to seeing something where it can't explain how perfect that thing is. Like how did with a single stroke they create, you know, the flow of a finger up through a, you know, the elbow, and it works. It's just right, and it just tickles your brain. Loves that stuff. So as if you're painting and you want to capture somebody and keep them enthralled in that, you got to find ways to hold on to that immediacy of the sketch. It's really hard, and obviously I feel like I've lost my way some with that. So that's what this is. The Mage, welcome. How goes? Go back to our big boy brush for a minute. Yes. All right, and then back to our liner. Could it be that the brain deconstructs the image into simple shapes and lines, and in so doing finds harmony? Yes, I mean, if you're hitting all of those marks as a painter, designer, and you're aware of those things, you can better control that as well, which is kind of the goal here, is to be mindful of how a viewer's brain is going to react to an image and then manipulate it. Painting is basically just manipulation. So you want to have maximal control over how you are manipulating your viewer, and understanding it and being aware of it is really the first and most important battle there. Because if you're not paying attention to that sort of thing and just kind of pretending that just the image as it is the entirety of it, not the subtle dance of that quiet manipulation, then you're missing out on the reality of what it is you're actually contributing and creating. All right, let's move back to the background for a little bit. Now that I'm playing with the lines, we're gonna pick a kind of a darker tone that we've got here. See how it plays. Might be too dark. Let's pick something a little lighter. Yeah, that's good. And we're gonna just start carving out the shapes that I was after from the beginning. So when you've created this field like this, right? Like we've done with the background. Let me actually undo all of those, and we'll put on a new layer just so that we can kind of see what's happening. Let's pull that out. Okay. Color pick it again. Make a new layer. So I don't want to lose all the juiciness that I created with the rough, loose brush, but I want to create details so I can just kind of carve them in. But they need to be the right shapes. They need to be the right things to read. So I treat that entire field, even though it's covered with texture and it's got lots of crazy stuff going on, I'm just going to treat it all as a solid color and then carve the darks out of it. Look how red this looks on that gray. Let's desaturate. We could just stick to this throughout and end up with something pretty tight. For the background, I mean. I am thinking about the overall read of the shape that I'm creating with these little negative shapes. I don't want them to distract. I want them to be an addition to my existing painting. MMA Fighter, thank you. I'm glad you like the colors. Thanks. In fact, I'm gonna kind of try and draw out like a rough composition where I want shadows to happen, and I'm gonna use these to kind of draw the eye back to my focal point. Not dark enough and too blue or too desaturated. Look at that. That's so crazy. Wow. So I'm mapping out where I'm going to be doing these textures. top shape pointing inwards is satisfying. This guy up here, yeah, totally. That's fun. Also, I can use these shadows, these implied shadows on the leaves, to soften a corner so that there's not as much visual interest happening in there. And get rid of these whites; they're not really helping me out. And softening a corner. We don't want a line that comes straight out of the corner, though. You got to be really careful about that. That's going to create a tangency. So I can soften that just by changing the local values. So any questions on this stuff so far? Take a little breather and look at it. What's my pizza order typically? Meat, everything. They invented the meatza pizzas just for me, I'm pretty sure. Because I love it. Sausage, pepperoni, extra cheese, hot dogs. No, I'm kidding. I did have a pizza with hot dogs when I went to Thailand for it was for a Magic the Gathering a convention or like a Grand Prix, one of those competitions. And I remember that the staffer and my translator, she ordered pizza for us, and it was like their special American pizza. And the American pizza was a standard pizza from Pizza Hut, but in the crust, you know how we have stuffed crust with cheese? They had these Vienna sausages. It was like cut up hot dogs, like put in like arranged in a spiral around the outer edge and the crust of the pizza, and they were wrapped in crust. It was so crazy. I'd never had hot dogs in a pizza before, but it was enjoyable. Also a pizza that's served with ketchup. It was like, let's put everything American into this. It's gonna be great. Very funny moment to me. Thailand was great. Thai people are very sweet. You're a proponent of hot dogs and pizza, and you're Mediterranean. Hey, I have some friends that you need to talk to that are like psychos about. They're Puritans about their pizza. And they're like, well, it wouldn't be this way in the Mediterranean. Yeah. So funny. They hate on the American style with all the accoutrement. Okay, so we have kind of a rough thing. It's interesting. This is like pulling. We started out in Sargent, and now we're getting into Brahm instead. So now we've gone full Brahm. I'm gonna lean into it. Brahm was one of my favorite artists when I was coming up in college. So why not? Let's just let it be a Brahm. Although to do that, I'm gonna have to really pale out this skin, which I might do. Might be worth it. My little Brahm homage. How do I spell what? Brahm? It's Brom. Great painter. I guarantee you've seen his stuff. Guaranteed. And in some ways, I mean, I'm not sure it's true. It's certainly not true in the art circles, but I imagine kind of in fandom, he's just not as well known as he should be, even though he was like a top illustrator throughout much of my youth, and he is an incredible artist. You'll recognize his stuff right away, but it doesn't seem to be as popular as it was, which is too bad because I think he's brilliant. You know, recognize the influence of this guy on one of your favorite artists, Jody Muir. I don't know Jody, but Brahm is absolutely an influence on pretty much everybody of my generation. You cannot, I mean, everyone, Ashley Wood, Moore Bacher, everyone has a little bit of Brahm in their work. And I absolutely do. I'm super guilty of biting off Brahm. I wanted to be just like him when I first started painting. I didn't go to college to paint. I went to college to do comic books, and when I started painting, I discovered Brahm, and I was like, "This is it. I just want to be this guy." So, cheers to him. Yeah, he's crazy good. Let's get a slightly less over the top color here. You can really weave the illusion of complexity by just creating overlaps of color. As long as you do it in like different sizes, different values, you can get some pretty complex shapes going. This should be worth it if you bear with me. I'm just going to create a little spot in this concrete or whatever it is back here. Paths, for the love of all that's good. Paths. You do not need paths for a pixel painting, man. Your path obsession is just wrought with foolishness. It's a waste of time. You're never going to need to pull them up again. Selection tool so much faster. Paths are better than the lasso tool for some things, not everything. In that you are 100% wrong, my friend. I'm sorry. For graphic design, for type, absolutely. You're faster with paths than just doing that? I don't know, man. I don't believe that. We should have a selection off then. See who's the fastest path in the West. So I started with those shadows. You'll remember I started doing these little kind of carve outs with the leaves, and I left them in there so I could cross compare here. It's fine to approach it that way, but I started drawing, and so I realized I needed to back up and go back to painting, and that's what I'm doing now. So instead of trying to draw the negatives of the shadows, I'm painting the positives of the lit parts of the leaves, and then we can go in, carve up those lit parts, and we'll get a similar effect, but it won't feel as overwrought, which again is what I'm challenging myself to do here, is to stop overworking stuff, which is it's tough. It is show don't tell, right? You want to indicate, you don't want to outline completely. Easier said than done, let me tell you. Game on. You got to get a hold of Dishonored 2 art book. Oh yeah, Serklov. I can't remember his name. He's also amazing. Just whoops my ass. And I love that he's kind of gone the Picasso route. Like he's already proven that he can paint anything under the sun and give it like tons of style and realism and grit. And then now he's just like, nope, I'm just gonna make crazy graphic stuff. I don't care. And it's so cool. Kolosov, thank you. Is it Andrei Kolosov? Yes, he's so good. Or Anton, I can't remember. Yeah, I remember when the art for Dishonored came out, I was ready to put away my Wacom pen. I was like, no, I can't. I just can't keep up with this. Wow, that's pretty real time. No. Just made the same kind of stroke twice. Never mind. Okay, so I've done something where I've accidentally made these stripes that are just kind of crossing behind the head, and the shape of the negative and the positive are about the same. So I hate it. We're gonna get rid of that immediately. This is, I think it's a natural tendency amongst all artists, but it's one that I suffer from severely, and it is to create too much order. When you look at my wrinkles, that the lines will be the line of the lit part and the shadow part will be roughly the same size, or they'll pattern out and they'll be the same pattern, and it is infuriating that that's just a natural instinct of my brain to want to pattern things like that. We want to avoid that, especially with organic surfaces like these leaves on this briar wall or whatever this is. Thug Damage has asked, how many paths do you end up with in a finished painting? Or are you asking that of Thug? Because he uses paths for his graphic design and his artwork. I don't use paths. Well, very rarely will I use paths. It's too slow. Sergey Kolosov, yes. He is a god. Yeah, his recent stuff, he's just stopped bothering with trying to please anybody. He's just making stuff for himself, and I salute it 100%. In his case, it's a comeback to the roots. Really? That's how he started. I didn't know. Is he? Did he used to do graph, like wall productions, graffiti? Because they do have kind of that vibe to them. We're going to bail on this background in a minute here. I don't want to spend too much time on it over rendering. If this was yours, she'd have a path for her silhouette, and then made her skin, clothes, and hair would have paths. Depends on the use case. Yeah, I guess. Generally one per character. I mean, it makes sense if you're going to keep them separated, but with painting, you don't want to have a super sharp edge like a path. I mean, that's one of the issues I have now with current concept art, even my own, is that the edge control's gone out the window when it comes to a silhouette. It's all just pure sharp edge. There's not really any soft edging anymore, which is a more painterly approach. And it's because digital allows you to do things like crazy paths and clipping masks and stuff like that. Yeah, gray voice, you're exactly right. It will make it look very digital. Rick Blood reminds you of constructivism, which you think is big in Russian art. Yes. You're talking about Sergey Kolosov? Yes. He's definitely got... It's very shapy. It's very simplified, but then he's got these amazing textures on top. It's beautiful stuff. Pi is a graphic designer by background? Oh, he. Yes, I see. He... Kolosov is a graphic designer. Yes, I could totally see that in his work. Preferably with this piece, you'd want her on her own layer and have the background run behind her. I mean, she is on her own layer, and the background is running behind, but I am still trying to paint the character so that it feels like it is a painting that is done traditionally, where they're, you know, the edges are blended. The edges are created by placing a color next to a color instead of having it be really sharp, digital looking. Great voice graphic designer too. I can have a painted edge. You can't have a painted edge with the with the a separate layer unless you're doing soft edging like I'm doing right now. It's a wide range, but he's totally in his own lane. Yeah. I mean, that's you want to have a variety of different skills. Am I feeling okay? I'm layering. I've always layered my work. This is where the concept art, being a digital illustrator, comes in. It's always been layered. If I would have gotten Deathloop Rick Blood, it would have absolutely been because of him. Yeah, I get that. I totally make purchase decisions on the artists involved. Tyler, it's totally fine to redeem a crit. As I mentioned, I need you to post your art that you want critiqued to the Discord, please. And then I can pull it from there, and we can do a crit. Great. Yeah, the goal was to have it up before I started so that I wouldn't, so that I could do it first, but we'll give it a shot. All good. Warlock, how's it going? Good to see you. Yes, I've been real busy with projects. I was working on was art directing on an animated series for Netflix, and it basically completely absorbed my time. So I'd been away from, even though I'd thought about it a lot, just like too tired. So, Tyler, you used to go by Avid? Because we also have an Avid in the chat, or have had before. Is that your painting? Okay. All right. One moment, all. If you're looking to follow along with our crits and things like that, please do join the Discord. It's a great place. Everybody's working on art together there, and a lot of those things inspire what we end up doing in the Twitch. All right, so we're gonna just paste your painting into this one. There we go. Nice work. Let's give you your own due color-wise, and okay. Let's take a minute to take it all in. So any specific things you're wanting notes on, that definitely helps. We can focus on the things that you're after. And please, everybody, do enjoy. That's why he's hoarded the points. Yeah, Just a bit about this piece. You're going for the Magic the Gathering painterly look, and it's supposed to be a portfolio piece. Awesome. Nothing specific. You feel like the knight isn't very well done. You like the dragon. Okay. Color. Anything specific on that front? All right. Then let's dig in. So painterly, when you're wanting to aim at a Magic the Gathering type illustration, there's two ways to approach this. You've got if it's meant to be portfolio piece, you want to wow rather than be sort of more of a direct effective artist. It's two different things. One is a practicing artist where you're actually doing the work, and the other is trying to get the work in the first place, which requires a little bit more over-the-top stuff. So you want to approach it with those two different mindsets. So I want to give you notes from both sides. We'll start with a portfolio piece because that's your original intended purpose. I would say what you want to do is put another 15% into this, and push the rendering a little bit more. So you have some pretty strong focal points. Your focal points leaning really hard on the values, which is great. You absolutely want to push your values, but you have all of your sub-focal points at the same value. So we're going to talk about the focal points, and we're going to talk about... Oh shit, I do not have my concept art brushes up right now. This is going to be tough. All right, just bear with the textures. We're going to have textures. I would knock a lot of this stuff way back so that your focal point can really breathe. And with your values, especially when we're talking about small card art, we'll get into that, but you can really control this. All right, so just by putting that in there, we've really centered our foreground piece, and then you need to hit this with our secondary and tertiary lights. This is the magic stuff. This is the thing that's going to get a viewer, or somebody in hiring to take a minute and look at your painting. You want to give them a reason to stay. Your focal point is your reason to grab their attention. Hey, look at me. Hey, that's the first thing. That's to be fair, the hardest part. You got it. There's an interesting dynamic here. I think we could play with your composition in terms of actual arrangements of shapes a little bit more. We'll get to that later. But what you need also, after you've initially gotten their attention, is that secondary fix. You need to give them something to hold on to so that they're like, oh, what's going on here? And you've started it. I can see you're already thinking about it, which is great. You've started it right here. This stuff, beautiful. You just need more of it. You need more of it. It needs to be more refined and everywhere else. So we would get... You need to just punch it further. You need that secondary and tertiary light source. You see what I'm talking about? And it doesn't take much. It's going to be just as rough as the rest of your painting. You just need to hint at it. You know what I'm saying? Same thing. So here you have an awesome opportunity to create some very specific overlap that is very much being missed. This is the Fresnel. So if you'll remember in the lighting, I think it's in the very first 4 or 5 painting lessons of the logic of light and color on my Gumroad we talk about Fresnel. And Fresnel is essentially, it is light that's being reflected off of the surface of a thing, which is great. You want, as it turns away from our eye and becomes, as a surface turns away from our eye and becomes parallel to our eye direction, it becomes more reflective. And so you want to see that, and in illustration, it's a perfect excuse to create an outline. Because outlines are drawings, right? That's not a painting. Mm-mm. But here, we get away with it, and it looks good. Because it's real. That is something that happens. We're just accentuating the shit out of it. Oops. So you see how that separates? We can go further. I mean, when it comes to the Fresnel, you can push this really far. You can even push it outside of the values that you've got there. So let's pop that even further. I've just I've just locked the pixels. So see how I'm going even brighter with this? This is a place where you can get away with this. And these are, you've got the foundations. It's a solid painting. Really, it's just about this last little bit that's going to give us that juice. The reason that a person's going to stay. This is a great piece. In your opinions, graphic designer, art director, your main feedback is that the Dutch camera angle lessens the oomph of the dragon's dive. Yes, I do agree with that. So the Dutch angle, for those of you not aware, is when you have the camera and it's slightly off kilter, so your horizon line gets tilted. This would be kind of, I mean, the way our horizon line's reading right now is like this. If we're gonna have these mountains, this is perspective anatomy. This is effectively anatomy, but if we're gonna have these mountains like this, you need to, and we're this high up, we should see the horizon. You won't just see mountain peaks. The higher up you are, the lower the horizon line actually looks. If we're looking straight out. So yeah, the Dutch angle gives you that curve. If anything, you could probably go in the opposite direction. But I'm not sure necessarily that it's diving. I think that just this is kind of like what I was talking about with my leaves in the background. You have lines that are kind of creating a rhythm. So you have a line like this. Let's pull out my red pen. It's red pen time. You have a line that goes like this. And then you have another line that's basically going like this, which is a straight through line for your dragon. So and then you have this. This is where compositionally I have issue with it. Is this downbeat of the dragon's wings? It's just there. To me, there could be something much more dramatic here, where you could either bring the wings forward and give them a little bit more oomph, like this. Right now, it feels like the wing is going straight into that corner. And I would give it a curve to try to mitigate that a little bit more. This one feels a little bit too flat on. I feel like we would see more of the edge of the wing, like a blade edge. And that's another thing, is the shape, the actual volume of this. The volume of this wing is roughly the same as this. You see what I'm saying? So you want to avoid these kinds of things are to me the graphic design part, and it's the read. So at a small read, this is why I didn't bring it up right away. At a small read, this works because a lot of this stuff gets mushed together. But when we're nitpicking, that's the stuff that pops out to me. Cold rim lighting is so satisfying. Exactly. That's exactly it. I managed to completely, whoops. So let's that stuff. There we go. So let's finish up the one part of that, which is the again getting the attention and keeping it for a portfolio reviewer rather than doing the card stuff. That we cut away for card stuff to kind of discuss Thug's perspective on it. It doesn't work. Oops. See, the other thing that you get by doing these little lines is overlap, which creates that depth. You want things to overlap each other as they go back into the distance. You're missing that secondary light source overall. And if you wanted to get really juicy, you would add a third, like maybe a ground light, something warm coming up on the bottom surface of the dragon would help. You did it with the cloak, you did not do it with the armor. At all in places. And you'll see, this kind of ties back to the inserting the red into the figure in my painting that I was just doing, or rather was doing at the beginning. The idea that you're getting the environment into the painting. You need to have that. Eraser. Hopefully you can see what I'm getting at here. It's small stuff. You don't notice it until you kind of like do that second take and you start looking at it a little bit closer. You have a strong light source from behind. I think that could give you a little bit more play with specularity for your materials. You got to work on your directionality here. Part of this is facing that light straight on, and then it turns away. All of this, because you're trying to depict it outside of the light. So you have, there's kind of a mixed issue here. You have this cast shadow, which is a really nice thing to add, but what's casting the shadow? We can't really tell. If it's meant to be another dragon rider, it's not reading. You would need that shape to really be clear. There's just shadows here that are too strong. They're not really making a whole lot of sense within the logic of your lighting, because you have this light source that's meant to be kind of back here, off screen. Let's find another airbrush type thing. Where'd it go? I had one a minute ago. Where'd you go? Was it this one? I guess it was. It's 2. Damn it. Bet you. That's a little better. These values are just way too close to each other in terms of the darks. See that? Really make our foreground pop. Okay, so again, that lighting we were talking about. I'm fine with this being a light source from the sky, but again, it's not. This is not being played everywhere else. That's what I was pushing for over there. Just trying to get rid of uniformity. Anatomy wise, you have a really solid kind of, let's get red line here. A very solid bat wing structure here that's working pretty well. You got your thumb, you got your forefinger, middle finger, pinky. What happened here? That doesn't work. You have a shoulder, and then now you have, for this part, it's coming out of the elbow. That doesn't work. So this should be, if this is the elbow and you've got this webbing, this is correct, then you're going to have way off screen will be where your thumb is matching this one. So you can absolutely do dragons like this. I mean, it's a dragon. It's completely fantasy. But if you are going to do a dragon like that, both of the wings need to be the same. And you want to match anatomy across the board. This is also applicable, although less so, with your horns. Your horns do not feel like they're the same shape. Even though I can kind of see that you had this turn back here, it's not as clear because you don't have the Fresnel that we've been talking about. Secondary light source is the reason of your love-hate relationship with gilded sewing on fabric. Oh God, I can imagine. Oof, that is a lot. Bet it looks damn good though. All right, so let's assume you have the same lighting. So if this is meant to kind of face back towards your light source, it's kind of like what we've got up here. It's the same thing, it's just reversed. So the dark part is actually going to be getting the blue, right? This is the sky on top. And then as it tilts away, you're going to want to get more into that brightness of the red, which would be the far edge of it that we're not really seeing. Make sense? And then you can get the brightness back again. You know, if you were to see the top side of the shoulder, for instance. Hopefully that's making sense. It's just managing your light direction. It's a little bit all over the place in parts. The same is true for the tail. Remember that if our light source is back here and we're flying away from the sun, perpendicular objects pick up the light. It's the first 3 rules of light. Free on YouTube. If it's perpendicular, it's going to pick up the light. If it's parallel, it loses the light. And you have huge swaths of the body that are picking up light that shouldn't be. So this, if this cast shadow, for instance, is correct, and the light's coming from this direction, right? These are the rays being cast from that light source. So this should all be in shadow. Maybe we'll leave his head. This back here, this wing should all be light because it is all more perpendicular to the light source than his body is because he's flying away from the sun. This is good because it also means that we have a stronger contrast of our figures against. Same thing. The perpendicular parts are the parts that are getting the sun. Anatomy wise, another kind of oopsie here. The leg is, if we've got our greater trochanter there and the femur's coming down into the knee, this is reading as a short knee rather than a knee that's kind of coming forward like this. I would aim for something like that. And then you also, in that same vein, if you follow the torso down and then we've got our little bucket of the hips here, you've got one leg that's kind of originating out of the back and then another leg that's kind of originating out of the kind of just below the rib cage and really far back. You want to make sure that when you're doing things, especially when you have armor on them, you can't let armor, and this is what was happening with the cloth, the clothing on the dress, why I had to do the draw through. Always do a draw through, because you're gonna, if you depend on the exterior thing to define the interior anatomy, it's gonna get wonky every time. It will always happen. It happened to me, so don't worry about it. Go back, make sure that you draw the anatomy so that it reads as coming from the same origin, right? So if this is his leg on the far side, we're just drawing through. Always draw through, and then we have the, the saddle between his legs, like this. Make sure that your figures, if you're doing a seated figure that's on a saddle or something like that, that they're not sitting inside the creature. You didn't do that. You did great with that part here, so no issue. But just a reminder for everybody else. You put your little feets there, whatever. All right. In terms of proportions, I think you could probably go bigger with your armor. Armors, again, just like the rider can't sit inside the body of his mount, you need to make sure that the armor doesn't just sit flush with the body, that it's not painted on, right? So you get your cuirass up separate, just like you did with your pauldrons. This is a common thing that I see with armor design in general, and I mean even pros do it, where they treat it as painted on for most of it. They'll do the pauldrons huge, and then everything else kind of is flush. So you don't want to make that mistake. Get the armor to bulge out the armor needs to sit outside the body for sure. Here we've got another draw through issue, right? So we've got his torso inside, and he's doing kind of a what are those knights from Warhammer 40k, where his limb is starting out here. We need that to be connected. You see what I'm saying? Connected. Don't let the armor define the body. That's basically what I'm saying there. So there's a few different things. Any other questions? It's a lot to manage already with what I gave you, so I didn't want to just inundate you with more stuff. And I don't know when this is going to go up on YouTube for you to watch again, so possibly you're already recording. I don't know. Tyler, let me know. Great. So what I want you to do is, if you're feeling up to it, this isn't a proper class. I'm not going to give you homework, but if you're feeling up to it, go ahead and make some of these edits that we're talking about. Work on your composition. Work on your lighting. Really make sure that you're mapping out the lighting, because this is a complex shot. You have the sun in it, or you have the sun affecting it. It's outside the screen or outside camera, but it should very strongly be hitting your figures here. So you need to work on the anatomy, work on the composition, work on the camera angle, get your atmosphere working. There's a lot to hit, but throw it back on the Discord and ping me with an @ so that I can see it, and then we can talk about your progress. Okay? It's very nice work. I think that this is heading in the right direction. And anybody else, if you have questions regarding this stuff, please feel free to ask. It does. It's very wicked. Whoops. Thank you, Tyler. That was our Patreon style art crit, which I believe costs 15K in bits, right? Those are bits. It's been a while. Come on. Are we on time? 2 hours. Okay. It's always good to do for me, it's always good doing the teaching and doing a crit, because then after doing a crit, you have to put your brain, and you should all practice this too. You put your brain into that critical mode, and then you go back and look at your own work with that same thinking in mind. So sometimes I think it's a good idea to like look at somebody's work, really ask yourself how you would do it, how you would make it better. You know, what would so and so, how would they approach this? Like what could you do analytically to improve? Critique, get into that critique mindset, and then go back to your own painting, and let it fly on your own. Be as brutal as you would on anybody else. The dragon looks nasty, yeah. You like critiquing because somebody else did the hard work? That's a fair point, actually. Nice. Alright, let's end really quick. I don't want to belabor this background anymore. Or at least until I get the foreground up to the next level. But I do need to warm this up just a touch right here. Because I need to create the negative field shape from the elbow. I want it to feel like a background surface, and with it being kind of equivalent in saturation, even though the brightness is different, it was still not enough. So I needed to change the saturation too. That's the thing. You can always push and pull a contrast, no matter where it's at on a painting. You can add more detail versus less detail. Add stronger light versus dark, or dark versus light, or in this case, greater saturation, so that there's a difference between the less saturated foreground figure and the more saturated background, which usually is the opposite of what you would expect. But we're doing it Brahm style, baby. All Brahm up in here. We can throw this away because it no longer fits the painting. Okay. Let's get back in the flow. Let's grab that liner. Let us dig out some darks in the face and the body. For the darks in the face, we won't need much. You've done quick shape conscious thingy. It's really hard. Yes, it is. It's a very hard way to approach things, but it is. You'll learn so much. Did you post it on the Discord? To check it out after finishing up the show today. I want to make sure I get the feeling that this head is tilting away. Check this out. Did you see it? So again, remember how we were talking about having a really saturated color next to a desaturated one? So I did this here, and this feels warm. But when I put it into this field, it feels desaturated. It's because I forgot that I actually changed the color of the shadow of the skull structure here, the eye socket. It is not the same color as what I have here. See how much warmer that is? I'm hoping you guys can see this on your end. So because that's warmer, this needs to be warmer too. The eye detail that I'm going to do on that far side. And if I make it warmer so that it matches the saturation relationship of the socket to the line, as I have the socket to the line here, they'll feel like they match. It's crazy. It's super crazy, but it works. Still feels more desaturated to me than it should be. Let's try more. It's crazy. Color and light will never cease to amaze me. Again, I'm trying to scribble. I'm not trying to draw. I'm trying to create a shape rather than a line. Too dark. Excuse me. Just did the thing Sargent would hate. Blended an edge. I'm gonna do it again. Whoa! A fucking monster. Alright. We just need a smaller, softer brush now. Create that keystone shape at the top of the nose. I say, indeed, this brown chap, he is blending away. Unacceptable. I love that we've totally turned Sargent into a monster in our heads. Ease the curvature or the sharpness of this nose just a touch. Don't want to zoom in too much. So this is something I think Sargent definitely would do, is spending time really making sure that the edges and the colors are working in focal points like the face, but he would do it in such a way to make it feel effortless. And that's going to be our goal here, is to try to hold on to that more structural sketchy approach while really, I mean, honestly, straight up rendering. I don't want to get into it too much. I'm just kind of getting it started. We know this is my favorite part, and I can stay here forever. But we do have the rest of the painting to finish, and we don't want to leave it feeling unfinished elsewhere. Although, like I said, this will probably take more than one session. Let's get that chin going. So he would do with his faces, when he's doing those tighter parts of the painting, he would do the same thing that we've been doing, just kind of like, you know, comping out these shapes and being very sculptural with it, just like we're doing. But he would do it with such a tight brush, with such a small and gentle touch, that it feels simultaneously rendered and sculptural and rough, which is just incredible. He was very selective with his brush strokes. They say he steps 20 pages. Yes, he did. And that's one of the great things. We don't have to do that. We have this guy right here. So great. We've got some new follows. Tunenu Nenu, Pulverizer, and Inugnes. Awesome. Thank you so much for the follows, gang. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you'd stop in and hang in future sessions. We do Saturdays on the reg, but we do the randoms during the week. Giving her stronger, that noble chin. The navigator seems quite useful. Yes, it do. He would appreciate that part. The warm shadow under the jaw, of course, because it's reflecting off flesh, it's reflecting off the environment, the leaves, the red leaves behind her. Always good to stop and consider it. I really like, so what I'm doing right now, I want to walk you through my thinking. I'm always thinking about when I'm working on a study like this, I'm thinking about the things that I'm trying to fix about my own approach to painting. We all know that I love to do speculars. I love to do shiny, glossy, creepy candy. I'm a creepy candy, cute creep guy. That's what I do. It's my jam. But I love paintings like Sargent's because they don't go so far in the material rendering. One of my weaknesses is I lean on material rendering to make up for the fact that there isn't something there, you know, that there's a hollowness to the rest of the design. So material rendering, I got it down, no problem. I can do the light stuff, but if there's like not any depth or there's not any, I don't know, there's not that juice to it, that buttery quality, that's how I make up for it. So I'm trying to not do that this time. And so I do any speculars beyond this. When I do skin, I always make it look too shiny. It can end up looking waxy or plasticky, and I don't want to do that. I want this to feel, again, more of that, Sargent style approach. Brahm would be on my side. He would be a little bit more in the painting the figures so that they're a little bit less flesh and matte and a little bit more on the shiny side. Not always, but he leans more on my side of that spectrum. So yes, slimy as well. Thank you for clarifying. I do lots of slimy paintings. So we are working on my weaknesses today. We're trying to keep them from coming to the surface. We're painting with purpose. Kind of a young Angela Lansbury vibe. Works for me. It's very kind of in the vein of our boy Sargent. Let's digital up the face a little bit just by transformation, because I think we could get this to look a little bit more naturalistic in terms of proportions. I have a feeling I've lost a little bit. Oops. So I just copied that section of that layer, pasted it in the same spot. I'm going to try warp first and see if that solves. Sug asks, you've got a good raid suggestion when I'm ready? Oh, all right. I'm probably too tired for a proper raid, but we'll see. It's subtle, but is it improving it? I don't think so. A miniature painting stream? Oh, that's cool. What miniatures are they painting right now? I tried to change, didn't like it. I do think we're getting that kind of timeless actress thing going on, but at the same time it might be reading a little bit older than I'm intending. Be careful, Izzy, don't over-render. I think we can probably tone down this redness and shadow just a touch, and instead bring up the, oops, I think we're missing a little bit of upper lip mass here. Oh, the reviewing viewers miniatures, that's cool. Not sure if it's the nostril or what, but something just feels off here. It's a great title. The smile without teeth. I usually paint really strong mouth structures with bigger lips, because obviously it's what I know. So I'm trying to keep these more restrained. It's tough. Oops. I think maybe the mass of the face is too big on the head, and that's what's sticking me here. Maybe that's what it is. Let's see if this fixes it. Yeah, that's helping a lot. And I hate the mouth, so we're just going to get rid of it and start over. Piercing? Nope. That's what I would normally do. We're just going Sargent-y today. You know, I would always do a piercing. Happily. Oops, wrong color. There we go. I'm trying to paint reserved. There is such a thing for me. Face tattoos, neon makeup, cyberpunk implants, all art goes in my book. I'm down. Every time. Hair could easily be turned into tentacles, so don't I know it. Placement of the mouth is still wrong. Sure. I know. Let's do this. Where'd it go? Pow! Yep. Yep. Sargent, look at me now. Yeah, that's helping. I think it just made the mouth way too broad. Again, I just make mouths too big. Can't imagine why. Yeah. 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 Cool. We'll go with it. Yeah. I managed to keep the mouth from going out past the side of the cheek, but it still works. Just went too big. That happens. Oh, we need a mod. Oh, geez. Yeah, I don't know how to deal with that right now. Sorry. Sorry, we got some spam. It happens. I think we may have to sit on this one and kind of really consider it. So we might come back to this with the next session during the week. I got some other stuff I got to get to today. Magic cards and whatnots. Hopefully it was entertaining for y'all. You might have learned something. Oh, jeez. I forgot Thug had the banhammer ability. So let's make some notes for our next meeting. I want to soften this. We need to get a hint of a curve without getting just over the top on the breast rendering. You know how that can go in general. We're going to do the same thing with the other side, just hinting at it. Let's do an accent value note, and I think we've got enough notes for the background to kind of finish that out. Accent value notes for the dark mostly, a little bit for the light, and I think we can probably call it done. Crazy how some simple details on her expression are enforced by her posture. Yes. Agreed. Good little spicy. She's spicy lady. Let's knock this down a touch. That might be too much, but let's just stick to it and see how it plays. So for our light and dark accents, these will be our darkest darks and lightest lights, most likely. We can always push it further, but we're creating notes for ourselves. This is for future Izzy's edification and knowledge. I'm giving myself some design notes where I might have something specific in mind for the shape of the hair. Let's see. Definitely want to have indications for where the strongest form shadows in the silhouette will be. What's cool about this is sometimes this just by virtue of figuring out where these values would be, it will result in the feeling of a greater amount of rendering. I think I want kind of a hint at some other rhythms. I don't want it to just be the shape. You know what I mean? I don't want just that one big constructivist read. I want something a little bit... I want some secondary surface details. This is something I have to work on. Again, this, you know, we're basically doing a practice session here. Is my propensity with design to just be like, nah, big shape, done. Instead of really delivering on the kinds of details that really grab your viewer. Just trying to match the spacing on the other side if I can. Quite like this painting. It's loud but subdued. Yeah, thanks. I feel the same. So, get that out a touch. This is going to be some kind of, yeah, an overlap detail. Yeah. I think we'll need to change this a little bit. It worked in the drawing, but it's not working so well in the painting. Let's bring these design elements down. I think some kind of, I don't know, like a bat wing, whale boning. I have another artist that I really love to see her work. Her Instagram is Mindy Lee Doodles, I think, or Mindy Doodles. You should absolutely give her a follow. Not that she needs it; she's got tons, I think. But her design sensibility with line work and kind of these using an accent value to create a detail and also form, so good, so good. General tips on you're studying that lately and struggling with drapery and clothes. Honestly, you're not going to beat actually drawing drapery and clothes. You can't. There's an amazing, I think Loomis, the Loomis books have drawing of drapery, which covers, I think it's like the 6 or 7 basic wrinkle types. Maybe it's not even that many. It might be 5. There's basic wrinkle types. I know that there's torsion, right, where there's a turn. There's compression like this, where it's even but straight down, right? This is compression. There's a pinch. There's a bunch of different kinds. Oh, maybe it's abridgment. You're right. Bring that out. Drape a shirt. What we did in school was like a white dress shirt, or any kind of white shirt really, that has a little crispness to it. That's not really soft like t-shirt material or a sweater. Get a crisper shirt. I used sheets because I don't have dress shirts, but something that will give you crisper, sharper angles on your drapery. Lay that over a chair with one strong light source and paint it, and do dozens of those. Move the painting around, change where the light source is, and really study how the wrinkles work. You're going to come out of that at Wrinkle Master, I guarantee it. But don't just paint photos. Don't just draw and look. It's specifically, don't look at how other artists handle it. You need to look at life for wrinkles to really kind of get a feel on them. Makes sense. All right, I think we've got enough notes. Oh, shucks, you have to do work to get back. Yes, sadly, I'm sorry. I know I've taken I've put the pin in the balloon on that one. There's got to be something I can do with to continue that rhythm of the wrinkles I've just added. Or not the wrinkles, but the ribbing. I don't know. It's all on a separate layer. So if I hate it, when we come back to this, we can decide then what to do. All right. I think that's good enough for now. Saved. We'll call it in progress, and we'll finish it up probably in the next get-together. We have made it just about 3 hours. Starting to feel a little tired, so that's good. I'm getting back into the rhythm of these longer ones. The 2-hour was perfect. I did that aces, no problem. That was Wednesday, I think I did that. So if you are on right now watching and you're interested in getting the random pings for when I go live to do finish up paintings or play with Photoshop or just talk shop on painting, give us a follow. You've probably seen up here my socials, so you can find out when I'm streaming pretty easily. Discord and Twitter will probably be the best places to find it. I know I should be doing it on Instagram, but it's just so much work setting up an image and all that stuff. I'm super lazy. Thug, I will maybe do a raid next time. Today is not the day. It's just too much to try and say hello to somebody I don't know. It's not at 3 a.m. again. You're in. It probably will be. These are the morning ones. I don't know. All right, gang. Really appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully you learned something, had a little fun. And until next time, you know how it goes. Paint smart, paint sexy.